long green trail, a once-in-a-lifetime walk. These are just two of the many phrases used to describe the Pennine Way, England's best-known long-distance walk. The challenge of a 268-mile continuous route has attracted thousands of walkers over its 40-year history. From Teesdale in Derbyshire to Cheviot Hills in Scotland, the Pennine Way offers the ultimate long-distance walking challenge. In 1935, rambler and writer Tom Stevenson first raised the idea of a long green trail. And on April the 24th, 1965, the Pennine Way became a reality. At a special ceremony, nearly 2,000 people gathered on Malham Moor in the Yorkshire Dales to celebrate its completion. 40 years on, the Pennine Way is one of 11 official national trails designated, managed and part-funded by the Countryside Agency. 2 new trails are also in development. In partnership with the Countryside Agency, the Pennine Way is looked after by the local highway authorities, the Peak District, Yorkshire Dales and Northumberland National Parks. The trail not only offers walkers access to remote and wild countryside, but in many instances places they couldn't legally visit 40 years ago. Teesdale Village and the Nag's Head pub in the heart of the Peak District National Park are recognised as the start of the route. From Teesdale, it wanders through the Peak District, Yorkshire Dales, North Pennines area of outstanding natural beauty and Northumberland National Parks. It crosses Hadrian's Wall and the Cheviots to finish in the tiny village of Cheviot Hills, just over the border in Scotland. The trail passes through some of the most beautiful and remote countryside in England. The route covers high fells, moorland, forest, woodland and river valleys. It follows old footpaths and bridleways, ancient packhorse, drovers and shepherds' tracks, and even Roman roads. The 2 main uses of land along the trail are for hill sheep farming and grouse shooting. Tough upland sheep are grazed on the high moors and herded into valley fields for breeding and lambing. The high ground is also used for grouse shooting, and you often see lines of grouse butts stretching across moorland areas. Up the first steep climb, Jacob's Ladder. This is named after a packhorse man who took a shortcut up the hill while his packhorse followed the track around. This route gave him enough time for a smoke on his pipe at the top before pressing on. Around 150,000 people a year use the Pennine Way for day trips or longer walks. Nearly 3,500 people each year go in search of adventure and take up the challenge of completing the trail in one go. They take an average of 16 days to complete it. In some ways, the Pennine Way has, in the past, been a victim of its own popularity. Nobody imagined the damage that would be caused to the peat sections on the trail. In the late 1970s, stretches of the Pennine Way were a sorry sight, with bare peat up to 100 metres wide. Fortunately, this damage has now been repaired, using flagstones from the floors of demolished Lancashire woolen mills. The paths that had been created hark back to the old packhorse trails of the past. The edge of Kinder Scout. Originally, the Pennine Way crossed the peat hags over the summit of Kinder Scout. The current route has been created because of the severe erosion affecting the peat hags on the original Pennine Way line. Kinder Downfall. A small trickle of water for most of the year, but on occasions it becomes the proverbial raging torrent. Featherbed Moss. The name doesn't do credit to the boggy nature of the ground. The eroded line of the original Pennine Way is still visible beside some sections of the path today. The Snake Pass Road. often the first road in the north of England to be blocked by snowfall. Crossing Doctor's Gate, a trackway named after a sociable 16th century doctor from nearby Glossop. Onwards into Devil's Dyke, Bleaklow Summit, a wild place. Peat has been much damaged by the combination of acid rain and moorland fire. It's now been revegetated as part of the Moors for the Future project. Approaching Crowden. This is the end of the first day's walk for many people with its youth hostel and campsite. Maddow Rocks is a famous climbing venue, going back to yesteryear. Older generations can no doubt tell tales of climbing in clogs and bivouacking in the cave beneath the crags. Back down Crowden Brook looks into Longdendale and Bleaklow beyond. Black Hill. This is another eroded peatland summit, and at one time a boggy nightmare for Pennine Way walkers in wet weather. Now the slabbed path snakes across the peat, giving a firm walkway. Snoopy's Snack Van. It's a lovely spot for a cup of tea and a bacon butty at the crossing of the Isle of Skye Road. The road is named after the inn that once stood here, but which was demolished in the 1950s due to concern over polluting the nearby reservoirs. Black Moss Reservoir, a feeder reservoir for the Standedge Tunnel, which carries the Huddersfield to Rochdale Canal for 3 miles, several hundred feet below. The Marsden entrance to the canal and railway tunnels that pass beneath the moors. Windy Hill Transmitter and the M62. The M62 is the highest motorway in England. It was opened after the Pennine Way, and the route of the trail now crosses the motorway on a purpose-built bridge. Blackstone Edge. This is Daniel Defoe's Andes of England, where millstone grit rock outcrops have been blackened by the pollution from the chimneys of industrial Manchester. A rare flat piece of the Pennine Way, along the reservoir tracks heading for Studley Pike. Studley Pike. Its building was prompted by the defeat of Napoleon in 1814. Unfortunately, in 1815, Napoleon escaped from captivity and building work was postponed. The monument was finally completed soon after the Battle of Waterloo. In 1854, the whole structure collapsed, but was rebuilt 2 years later. Over the moors to Top Withens. heart of Bronte country, this ruined farmhouse is reputed to be the inspiration for Wuthering Heights. Ickenshaw Moor, past the isolated moorland chalets. Pennine Hill, with views all around and a hint of the landscape of the Yorkshire Dales to the north. Grave Village, with its cafe, shops and pubs, is a welcoming place for the tired Pennine Way walker. Head of the beautiful Ayr Valley is Malham Village. Surrounded by an intricate pattern of dry stone walls, the village is a popular stopping-off point for regular walkers. Above Malham Village lies Malham Cove, a soaring limestone cliff 80 metres high. Years ago, a stream used to pour over the lip of the cove. Today, the valley above the cove is dry as the stream dives underground and water sinks. Into Watlow's Valley, the epitome of the limestone karst landscape that dominates the Dales. Around the edge of Malham Town, with the large shooting lodge now set aside to the gentler pastimes of the Field Studies Council. Using an old packhorse trod, the climb over the summit of Fountains Fell is long, but not too arduous. The hill is named after Fountains Abbey, who at one time owned the land. Pennygent, one of the famous three peaks of the Yorkshire Dales, along with Whernside and Ingleborough. Hull Pot. Once in a blue moon, this 18-metre deep pothole fills with water as the underground tunnels that drain it are blocked by heavy rainfall. Horton in Ribblesdale, which is often the end of a long day's walking for many a walker. Horton in Ribblesdale is home to the Pennine Cafe. This has got an amazing number of Pennine Way signing-in books, dating back to the opening of the trail in 1965. The Pennine Way leaves Horton in a walled lane, passing some intriguing potholes. Lingill Bridge and the head of Lingill, which is a heavily wooded deep gorge and a national nature reserve. Built 125 years ago, the Batty Moss Viaduct is more commonly known as Ribblehead Viaduct. The nearby station also has an interesting history, including church services being held in the waiting room. Around the viaduct, the remains of the shanty towns for the railway workers can still be seen. The town names echo back to Victorian times: Sebastopol, Belgravia, Jerusalem, Jericho and Salt Lake. The village of Hawes. Hawes is one of the largest settlements on the Pennine Way. It lies at the head of Wensleydale, some 259 metres above sea level. It's a place of cafes, shops, potters, cheese making, rope making and numerous pubs. Hidden behind the Green Dragon pub lies Hardrow Force. It's the highest unbroken waterfall in England at 30 metres high. In days gone by, there was a bandstand here and thousands of people flocked to the band competitions. One year, the famous Blondin crossed the ravine on a tightrope, stopping halfway across to cook an omelette, as you do. Great Shunner Fell, a great whaleback of a hill. Descent into Swaledale. The beautiful fields each have their own barn on the approach to Thwaite village. Along the River Swale to Keld, and then climbing towards the Tan Hill Inn. Tan Hill Inn is Britain's highest pub, located at 528 metres above sea level. Even in the height of summer, there's always a fire lit in the bar. Bridge, a natural limestone bridge on the River Greeter. The reservoirs of Baldersdale, at the remote Baldersdale Youth Hostel, which was originally opened to serve Pennine Way walkers. Rose Castle. This was built on the Stainland Gap, which was an important strategic route in times gone by. The rocky outcrop of Goldsborough on the Bowes Loop of the Pennine Way. The descent into Middleton in Teesdale, a former lead mining town, and now a peaceful market town with everything a weary walker could want. Force, a quiet precursor to the splendours of its more illustrious partner, High Force. High Force is the largest waterfall in England. There's a 21-metre fall from its dolerite edge to the pool below. Upper Teesdale and its National Nature Reserve. Moorhouse National Nature Reserve is one of England's largest national nature reserves. It covers an almost complete range of upland habitats typical of the North Pennines. These range from lower-lying hay meadows, rough grazing and juniper woods to blanket bogs and summit heaths on high fells. Nowhere else in Britain is there such a diversity of rare habitats in one location. National nature reserves were set up to protect the most important areas of wildlife habitat and geological formations in Britain. They're managed by English Nature, the government's advisors on wildlife. Past the Falcon Clints. Cauldron Snout Waterfall is overlooked by the Cow Green Reservoir Dam. The reservoir was built in the 1960s to ensure water supply to the Teesside conurbation. The climb from Mays Beck gives little warning of one of the Pennine Way's finest features. High Cup Nick, a breathtaking gorge, edged with dolerite cliffs and with distant views to the Lake District. descending into the Eden Valley before the Pennine Way turns east and climbs once again onto Great Dun Fell and its air traffic radar station. Crossing the hushes in the ground, the straight channels caused by miners washing the top surface off the veins of lead beneath. The term hush comes from the sound of the water as it was released. The climb to Cross Fell, the highest point of the Pennines at 893 metres, and a fine place to be on a sunny day. Hut, an old miner's shelter, now managed as a mountain bothy by the Mountain Bothy Association. This was filmed just a few days after a landslip narrowly missed demolishing it. A long descent down the Corpse Road. This route was once used to carry coffins from Garrigill, which had no consecrated ground, to Kirkland in the Eden Valley. Through Garrigill, with its welcoming pub and B&Bs, and on down the South Tyne Valley to Alston. Alston is another former lead mining settlement. It now claims the title of the highest market town in England. The town centre is often used as a film set for period dramas. Heading along the Pennine Way Roman road, linking the South Tyne Valley to Hadrian's Wall. The fence line on the ground illustrates the impact of grazing on heather moorland. Greenhead Golf Course and the first sign of Hadrian's Wall. The Vallum Ditch alongside the wall route is clearly visible as it crosses the course. Besides Hadrian's Wall World Heritage Site, the trail passes through many protected habitats and environments. Wall. The 6 miles following the route of the wall are hard going, thanks to the steep rising and falling ground along its length. North of the wall, the Pennine Way enters Walk Forest for a contrasting walking experience to that of the Pennines and Dales. Approaching Shitlington Crags. Bellingham Bridge and the village of Bellingham offer a welcome array of services for the tired walker. The climb to Whitley Pike is across wild and remote moorland. Hill Monument. This was created by one stone at a time, being carried uphill by Scottish Presbyterians who held services at this remote place. Entering Kielder Forest, with views beyond to the final phase of the trail, the Cheviot. Climbing from Burness through the forest to Burness Hill, with its remains of a fire tower. The intriguing remains of Roman camps at Chew Green. The crossing of the Cheviot is a very long day's walk, or it can be broken in two with some planning. On a quiet day, there's no better place to be. There's not much shelter up here. Two refuge huts offer the only reprieve from bad weather. Windy Gyle. The climb up King's Seat. The optional spur to Cheviot summit. It's now a slabbed path, with the foundations of the trig pillar showing how much peat has been lost to erosion. Hen Hole. Another contrast to the rest of the Cheviot Hills, and named after the birds of prey that once lived here. the last big climb onto the Shill. The approach to Whitelaw on the high level route. The end of the Pennine Hills is ahead. The fort on Green Humbleton as the Pennine Way descends to Kirk Yetholm. After 268 miles of remote, wild and invigorating walking, the border inn at Kirk Yetholm beckons as the finish of the Pennine Way. Many a pint has been drunk here to celebrate a successful achievement. No matter where we are now, we can all raise a glass to Tom Stevenson, a man of vision who 70 years ago called for a long green trail, a Pennine Way from the peak to the Cheviots. 30 years in the making and 40 years of existence, the Pennine Way has stood the test of time. In the words of Tom Stevenson, written in 1935, whatever the cost, it would be a worthy and enduring testimony, bringing health and pleasure beyond computation. For none could walk that Pennine Way without being improved in mind and body, inspired and invigorated, and filled with a desire to explore every corner of this lovely island.